have a special opportunity to hear from Kim Skyrm, the chief of the apiary section for the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture. And there again, which I find just amazing, his journey in beekeeping and apiary, but also his vision of apiary programs. Because there again, as we talked about already, that connection between government and beekeepers and agriculture is important. It needs to be smooth and it needs to be responsive. So if we could have a big hand for Kim Skyrm, that would be super.
Holy moly, this could be the halftime Super Bowl show. Just, wow, this is what they feel like, isn't it? Wow, there's something really powerful about this. I don't know if I'm ready for it. Wow. So, well, thanks so much for having me, everybody. I have to admit, when I agreed to do this a couple of years ago, I tend to be a yes person, and I'm trying to be a better no person, but it hasn't rubbed off yet. So, I agreed about 3 years ago, and guess what? 3 years ago is today. So, I don't think I realized it would take this long. And at the time, we had this grand idea when we were starting to do an email exchange about this program series is to really feature women. And I thought, man, that is a great program, but I'm not really sure how I fit into that because I'm the person that you send an email to for a Kim, and you end up with this, and people go, where's Kim? And I'm like, right here. So I am not really an easy sort of fit into a box kind of person, and it's always been like that. So I think my journey in beekeeping is unconventional to say the least, just as my presence is here in front of me today. So you don't know what you're about to get, but we're going to have a good time doing it together. So let's dig in a little bit. I am also a very long-winded person, and I tend to be a little late to things. So my title is indicative of that. But really, when I was trying to think about this, I thought, what has been the driver for me in my career? And quite frankly, I was mulling this over with my partner who's here with me today. Really amazing to have that support. But she said, Kim, if you were a younger you, what would you want to hear? What would inspire you? And I thought, wow, I don't think I should tell them not to get into bees. That should not be the first thing I would say because it's going to be difficult. But I think I should tell them a couple of key things. So I started out with some words of wisdom. Maybe they're not too wise because I'm not old enough just yet for this, but I'm going to try. So I think for me, for the younger future bee lovers out there, these are the things I can tell you really quick that has been the center of everything I've done. And my journey, much like everyone that you've heard from, by the way, phenomenal speakers, so humbling to be in this group and to be asked to be here. But we've all been able to sort of take parts of this, and this has been sort of the central for me as I went through, and not things that you would get on one of those one-a-day calendar little lessons and you go, oh, that's a great saying, or a meme on your Facebook page, but like real stuff. And I struggled with this list because I thought, what would future me sitting there really want to know? And I think the biggest thing is that everything I've done in my life has been driven by a love of bees. And I don't mean save the world love of bees. I mean hours and hours and hours watching bees do things that bees just do, basic bee normal things. So it has been really interesting to take from that and to create positions and opportunities that I've had, and it has not happened in a vacuum. So I'll start out with these. So be intentional, do what you love, and I know that's a little tongue in cheek, but you also got to do what you love and find a way to make some cash, because guess what? Cash is the currency of our world, and I know some of the speakers have talked about that. So we all love bees here, but if you don't have another means of living, you can't do what you love. So that's a big part of it. You got to be social. So I always tell this to beekeepers. We do a lot of beekeeper presentations, and the one thing I say to them is that in this room today, if you go home knowing no one else's name that you didn't know before, then you have not really succeeded into the end of beekeeping, because beekeeping is just as social as the bees themselves. So you have to remember that. And I have surrounded myself intentionally, some with hard mistakes and lessons, and a lot with just, those are the people I want to hang out with, the back table people at this meeting. No, I'm teasing, but in other places, those are the people that I want to surround myself with. So you really have to be intentional and create your own hive, because it's something that's important to be successful. And I'm still creating my own hive, and I got plenty of room. So if anybody's missing a hive and you're trying to figure out where to go, you come on over here because I'll take you. So the other thing is you got to be aware. And I say this because most of us in this room are really, really young, and I am included in that. I am not getting any younger, but the things that people are putting on social media is unreal sometimes. So just remember, and I'll give you an example today, that stuff will stay with you forever, just like this presentation. So we'll see how this goes. This might be a mistake. And the last two are really important. And this is something I've really spent a lot of time thinking about. And Sarah was really lovely with this and edited these a million times. But I've always been an outlier. Always. And I found even in my data sets, the outliers are my favorite points of data because there's a reason they occur. And as a scientist, Jerry will probably agree with me, outliers is the biggest pain in the butt when you get a data set. You're like, come on, man, I really want to do some significant results here. Why did this not go smoothly? But in my research as a grad student, and even today, the outliers are my favorite. And those are the reasons for that is because there's some individualism there, some grit and survival that I feel like I've used in my life. And that's what I really like. So I encourage people to be an outlier when you can. It really makes you stand out. And then, of course, the be practical part. So everything I've done has been from the lens of observations. I spend a lot of time watching. And guess what? As an inspector, it has been the golden ticket to success in my job because my whole job is about watching. And I can tell you right now, in the last day and a half of this program, I have learned a lot about all of you. I don't know any of your names, but my inspector instincts, I know just about everything I need to know about how you keep bees. And that's because of what we do in our job. And Barb probably agrees with me, and so does Tammy. And I'll tell you why a little later in the program. Some of you are like, oh my gosh, what's happening? This is creepy. Yeah, no. So the one thing I also want to share with you is I did not start out with honeybees. I ended up in honeybees, and not by any fault of my own, but because I was actually captured, and Jerry did a great job explaining this earlier, so I appreciate that, with bumblebees. And I'm still completely and head over heels in love with bumblebees. Will go to my grave as a lover of bumblebees. They are my first love, and honeybees are the second. So don't tell anybody. Bumblebees is really where it was at for me, and I'll share a little bit about that journey. But they are included in this group of eusocial bees, and of course, because of that, as humans, we really identify with this group because of all those characteristics that Jerry mentioned earlier about how they have this altruistic behavior that's really quite phenomenal. Now, on the spectrum of being social, bumblebees are the most primitive. And I would argue by far, for my honeybee people in the room, they're going to go, no way. I would say they are the most amazing of all the groups, and I'll show you why. So let's get going. I'm going to share a little bit about my very unconventional flight of a bee lover, which started out in Georgia. That's where I'm from and raised. So if you can't understand my accent, you all have one and I do not. So that's my saving grace. I'm sorry. You all have an accent. I can't hear it, but I'll be happy to if you can't understand, to let me know afterwards. But my flight has been from going into a bachelor's degree program, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in Georgia, and then from there, basically going from academia into industry, and then industry into government. So if you're a young person and you're curious about any of those paths, I have done it all, and I'll be very happy and very candidly, bluntly, might I put it that way, tell you the ins and outs of my journey. So if you want to reach out to me later, or if you all have younger people that are interested in a journey like this, I can give you the ins and outs of what my experience has been in those three areas, especially from the bees perspective. And then I really loved what Barb did, and I think, Barb, it's so wonderful to see that. So I'm going to tell you my process as using the bee's life cycle because I'm such a bee fan and how I've pretty much developed the same way. So let's get going here. So my egg phase, I am from the deep area in South Georgia. Georgia's known for beaches, right? And probably, yeah, peanuts. So a lot of food items, some good country music. I do love good country music. And then a lot of other things that we won't get into, like political stuff and all that mess. But one thing that I'm not from in South Georgia, I'm from way down here in the corner, and the only thing we're known for is the Okefenokee Swamp. Most of you are like, what is that? Google it. It's really cool. And we're about an hour's drive from the coast of South Georgia, so the islands. So Jekyll Islands, St. Simon's Island, Brunswick, those are probably our claims to fame. Outside of that, the only other claim to fame you have now for Georgia is standing up here right in front of you. So I'm just teasing. But seriously, not a lot going on. When I was a kid, much like everyone here, I had a really deep connection with nature because guess what? There wasn't much else happening in the area where I lived. And so I spent a lot of time outside. I was not at all up to my mother's idea of what a girl should be or how they should behave. Most of my life was very much within not very many clothes on, running in the woods. And one thing I really much enjoyed, which she did not like either, is I would steal a lot of the flower petals from her flowers in the yard and feed them to the ant colonies in our yard. We had 5 acres, and it did not like that at all. But I loved it because I was so interested in their behavior and what you would see, right? Imagine this. And the reason I show you this, if you want to see what this looks like, is there was a recent, again, social media lasts forever, Somebody might regret this. One day, there was someone put a video up, and they were saying how the ants were doing a memorial service for this dead bumblebee. When really, of course, probably has zero to do with that. But the behavior of this was really interesting and caught this person's attention. Very similar to me as a kid, except in my case, right, I'm loading over petals from every flower I could find in the yard, and I'm just delicately putting them down and just watching, just so excited watching these ants walk by with these petals. It's quite amazing. So, and I still do some of that today, but we don't talk about that because it's my own yard now. So, but you never lose that. And my professor at Oregon State University, I'll share with you just briefly, said to me when I first started the program, she said, Kim, the difference between an entomologist is someone who's not is nothing. The only thing is that we continue to do this as adults, and now we get respect doing it versus being judged for being weird. So that's the only difference, because most of us probably had some interaction with nature. It's just some of us thought, wow, what do we really want to do that we connected with? And insects was it. So this has really been my early journey into insects. And again, being from South Georgia, there weren't a lot of opportunities. We were not very wealthy at all, probably was not on the path to do anything really big in my life, except my mom really believed in the power of education. She did not get much of it, and she thought, if I can give that to my kids, then I have done the greatest gift on the planet. And that's what she did. She really pushed me hard to do that. And even though she had no means or understanding really on how to help me get there, she just knew that that was going to be really important to me, my ticket to something better. And I cannot thank her enough for that, especially from coming from where I came from. So a huge inspiration to me in my life. My mom has some real grit, y'all. Real grit. So one thing that I was able to do is go not very far away to Georgia Southern. And at Georgia Southern, being again in South Georgia, wonderful campus, a ton of opportunities, but I wasn't sort of a traditional student. I started out thinking I was going to go to space and be an astronomy major. So I started out really far up in the sky and ended up, right, in something that's really teeny, very complex and diverse organism and studying bees. So what a journey even that was, trying to think through this as a young person. And what changed me, like probably a lot of people that have changes in college, is I had took one class. His name was Stan Hagen. He was a professor there, and he taught a class called Insects and People. And he had a project. In the class, he offered an opportunity to sit at nighttime and watch a calling behavior project, and he was trying to help companies come up with chemicals to help attract those individuals so you disrupt the mating behavior of that moth. So here was a young student. I was thinking, I'm going to be an astronomy major. Physics told me, you are not going to be an astronomy major. So I quickly said, oh, can't do that. But when I started at nighttime doing this project, and I'm saying hours and hours, y'all, as a young person in these booths, I'm watching these really seemingly small moths call, which is a really neat behavior they do to attract a mate by emitting pheromones. And I was captivated. I just couldn't get enough of it. And I think from that remembering how much I enjoyed feeding those ant colonies as a kid and then linking that together, I was like, college tells you you're supposed to do what you love. They don't tell you that you're supposed to make any money at it. They just tell you to go for it. Do what you love, right? It's going to take you everywhere. That degree is going to get you everything. You're going to be the next president with that degree. Well, this ain't Harvard, and I am not the next president. So, but I thought that was kind of where I was going to go. So I really got into that, and immediately the world really opened up for me mentally, and I think really for me personally, I started feeling fulfilled. That was what I needed. So from there, when I was at Georgia Southern, I wasn't really sure what to go next because I thought, there wasn't a big graduate student program there for entomology specific. I really wanted to do insects. I wasn't sure which one yet, but I did have a lot of interest in stuff that was, and I'm being honest with you, cute, fuzzy, and had big eyes. So that didn't leave me a lot of insects to look at. But what it did lead me into is a project looking at spider diversity, because most of them have a lot of legs. They're actually pretty cute if you look at them really close, and they got big eyes. So I was like, this is perfect. And one thing that was really awesome about this is at the time my mom had some medical issues, and it wasn't a great time for me to leave the area. So when University of Nebraska had offered, and I would argue today is one of the best online programs for a master's degree in entomology. Absolutely phenomenal. So encourage folks to look that up if you're interested and aren't able to move geography-wise. And in this program, they offered this. And so I was able to complete this by also living in Georgia. And at the time, I thought I was going to be a science teacher. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can stay around students all day long and get really excited about this. So I ended up staying and got a minor in education because I took so many classes at Georgia Southern. So it was really neat to be able to marry these things, especially with the classes. So that's kind of what really launched me in my larval stage, right? Really kind of getting there. It's like, okay, now I can do something. I've got some really good path. Well, the next thing is I said, where in the world can I go? And who's going to take some kid from South Georgia who doesn't know a lot, has got now an online degree, which at that point in a master's, any online degree didn't mean a lot. It did not have value like it does today because this was way before the world that we were in. And unfortunately, in academia, a lot of it is really about who you know, what school you go to, how much money and family money you have, and a lot about where you can move to. And that was really tough because I didn't have a lot of those boxes. And you gotta remember, I'm an other. I'm not looking really feminine. I'm not fitting into these traditional roles that a lot of students would fit into to get into these programs. So I actually took a chance and I reached out to Oregon State University, the other OSU. I got to be careful here. And I reached out and said, I wonder if you would be willing to take a student if I pay for my first year, which is unheard of. And so as a PhD program, she said, you know what? I don't know you. You seem really motivated. I'll take a chance on you. And it set me up for life. So I have a huge debt of gratitude for her for literally accepting somebody from South Georgia who called her on the phone and emailed her. Before this journey, I do want to give a huge shout out to Bob Peterson at Montana State University. He spent several hours on the phone with me, helping me, again, somebody no name from Georgia, and helping me because I'd always wanted to live in Montana. And I thought that was really where my journey was going to go. I really loved it as a kid. I signed up for real estate ads. I would get all these notices about real estate and I put them all over my wall. I just knew that I was bigger than Georgia. I needed that big sky country. And he actually really helped me kind of navigate this. Again, took a chance on me. So I funded my first year of my PhD program, which you will never hear another person say because it's not something that we talk about either in academia. It's how you get there. I think it's kind of this golden arches that everyone gets a free ride and all this fancy money and postdoc, positions, but it's not like that for everyone. Sometimes you have to make your own way. And especially if you don't come from those areas that academics really look for, you don't check those boxes, you get picked over, you get looked over real quick. So I made my own way, and I think that's what's really been helpful in this process as well. So it's some grit there. Thank you, Mama, for that. So I ended up doing a PhD in entomology. And at this point, my mom has said to me many times, I know you're a doctor, baby, but are you a lung doctor? Like, what kind of doctor are you? She was like, why couldn't you be a lung doctor to help your mama out? And she's like, so what, are you just like a beekeeper? Is that what you do? I'm like, kind of, mama. So it took a little bit of time for me to educate folks right on this different path. But one thing that really changed for me is when I was at Oregon State, I really got my passion expanded in a way, and I did really get to that point where I would consider myself at a pupil stage, about to launch into adulthood. It helped train me. Yeah, I learned a ton of hard lessons. I had a lot of sleepless nights. I was not a partier at all. I'm a big square, and so I spent almost all my time trying to make up for what I thought were deficits. Because again, I'm there on my own ride, and then I had to prove myself. So it was a very different feel. And at that point, I really kind of jumped in and have never looked back. So, and after that, the other thing that really helped launch me into my adult phase of my life, my career, was getting a really quick postdoc. I actually almost ended up in Brazil, which who knows where I would be. Can you imagine a southerner speaking Portuguese? Woo! I'm going to tell you, you could because I even took Portuguese classes because I was that close to getting in Brazil working on a very different species of bumblebee. That's still quite fascinating to me. So one day maybe I'll get there. But and Lynn Royce at Might Be Farm, who got a small grant to rear bumblebees, and I'll show you why she got that in just a second because she said, "Whoa, we got this person that's really interested in bumblebee rearing. I can't miss out on this opportunity." So this was me in grad student, my first, I think, full year there. I had used a shovel a lot of my life, but had never used one to dig up a nest of bumblebees before. So this was quite an interesting experience. I do want to warn the folks at this point, you're going to see me with a lot more hair than you're ever going to see me moving forward. So it is the same person. I'll leave it at that. But got a lot less hair now. And since I've had this job in government, it'll probably continue to be less and less over the years. So the next time I talk to y'all, we might have no hair. So, all right. So what we did when I was at grad school in 2006, we did not have big social media then. So we put an ad in the newspaper, and I really wanted to work with bumblebee colonies. My advisor had a couple of different pools of money that were left with grants, and this was one that was sort of coming in but hadn't came in yet, and I was really interested in it. And so she said, why don't we try this? We'll put an ad in the newspaper. They had success, and you can go rehome and collect bumblebee colonies. But I wouldn't want to do that. Well, I had no clue that it might involve digging up people's yards and crawling underneath trailers and doing all kind of interesting things. But what it did teach me is this is the first time I ever wore a honeybee suit, ever. And it's probably one of the few times I've ever worn, I know the hat that Tammy loves. I'll never wear one again. Ever, ever, ever. So, but what this did, and I encourage you, if you ever want to relocate a bumblebee colony, you do need a bee jacket because unlike honeybees, bumblebees can sting repeatedly. They do not lose their stingers. So take that tip home today. If you listen to nothing else I say, don't go holding bumblebees because they're going to sting you a bunch. So, but we ended up removing these colonies. And at this point, if you're someone that celebrates the holidays or for your birthdays, if you enjoy getting gifts, this was a gift. I had never in my entire life been as interested and eager, so eager to see what was inside of a bumblebee colony. And when I got to this point, it was like, oh, what is this? This is really different. I don't really know if I'm interested. It was kind of a little gross. And I was like, this was not as interesting as I thought it was going to be because I thought it was going to be very similar to honeybees. It is not. So bumblebees tend to be second cavity nesters. So they don't make their own nest space, so to speak. So they usually take over the nest space of other animals, birds, rodents, whatever. And so they're a little bit different setup. But I had a really fun opportunity learning a ton about bumblebees during this time and also seeing some really interesting stuff. This was one that we collected that a rodent had used someone's holiday decorations to make their nest. And the bumblebee said, we don't care. We'll take that tinsel and wreath material. We'll put it on in here. We don't bother us. Our babies don't care. We had another nest, another good example of a nest that's underneath the ground. So digging these up. By the way, bumblebees nest in a lot of different places. So some on top of the ground, like the previous nest, some underneath the ground, so you have to dig them up, like I showed you, and others that are arboreal above the ground. I'll show you those in a minute, like actually elevated. So this particular nest, hopefully, some of you may have seen it if you have good eyes. This actually had whole mouse carcasses in it from the previous inhabitants. But you know what? Those bumblebees said, you know what? We are the original, we're the OG recyclers. We call this insulation. So you call it a carcass, we call it insulation and a missed opportunity. So we're going to fold that right in. And then for a boreal nest, a lot of these were in birdhouses because that's a really common thing for them to nest in. And we have a ton of feathers and nest material, whatever birds would use. And even some of them were really exciting where they've got this wax covering over the top of the colony. So you can't even see anything until you peel this off. And it's another layer for them to be able to have some insulation. So as a student, learning a ton, interacting with the public, getting an amazing wealth of information and experience doing this, getting really dirty, staying outside. It was awesome. Well, you got to eventually hone down and do something to get a PhD. So that's when we started thinking about what project can I do? How can I marry these two things? And one thing I thought of is I really like watching insects. So why don't we figure out the foraging behavior of these bumblebee colonies in an agricultural landscape? And this area in the Willamette Valley of Oregon is a very lush and rich agricultural area, but also very much devoted to seed production. And for those people who are obviously know about pollination, in order to produce a seed, you have to have really good pollination, which means you probably have to have some really good bees if it's something like clover doing that work. So there was an amazing abundance of bumblebee species in this area and just diversity. It was just, I can't even explain it. If you ever get a chance, please book yourself a ticket and get to Corvallis or Albany, Oregon, anywhere in the Willamette Valley. You'll be blown away. It's such an amazing area to be in for bumblebees. So made these boxes myself. Look how excited I was. I'm really excited about this. Color coded them and ended up spending about 2,500 hours, 2,500 hours sitting in this chair that I borrowed that was thrown out in the trash behind our building at the university from the lab remodel. And this old shelf that we picked up from a hardware store and these boxes that I made of OSB from Home Depot. And we watched these bumblebee colonies. And not only did we figure out what they were foraging for, but we also had some bumblebees that did really unique behaviors that would come out of the colony as queens and nest in these little compartments on the bottom of the shelf. And so you'd see them, and I started thinking, this is really strange because these bumblebees are supposed to make one generation a year. Why are they making multiple generations? Well, it was fairly unique, and so we ended up being able to publish this and getting some really interesting nesting behavior out of it. So how in the world, you're probably thinking, how in the world did you figure out what they were visiting? Well, we marked every individual bumblebee in the colony with a number and a color. This is the queen here and all the individuals that she's created in her colony. And then we would watch them come out of these clear tubes, and we would actually be able to see who was coming back from pollen, collect it, and then match it to whatever was in the landscape. So quite a bit of work to look at what pollens were coming back which now all of this is super common. You've seen it, you've heard about it in research, but 2006, 2007, this was really big. This was newer because we were just hearing about colony collapse disorder. So, and not a lot of people were really looking at bumblebees. So it was an area that had kind of been omitted in the literature for a long time because honeybees were such the focus. And I have to be brutally honest with you, I thought honeybees were kind of boring. Literally, everybody was interested in it. Everybody was a beekeeper. Everybody had access to them. But who in the world had access to a bumblebee colony? Have any of you ever seen one? Real life? Exactly. That's why I did it, because I'm an outlier. So I said, this is really interesting to me. So we ended up also doing a project which was really fun at that point, realizing that there was a lot of different types of clovers that were in bloom during this area and this time of year because of the seed production. And I got really excited when I saw these colonies and thought, how do you rear these? Like, how are they made? What's going on here? And so I got this bright idea that I would start learning how to rear bumblebees. And I thought, well, it's got to be easy, right? If people can keep honeybees, that felt so involved to me, but everybody's doing it, then surely we should be able to rear bumblebees. Well, I'm here to tell you, it is very difficult, but who was doing it? So I thought, sure, I'll take this home. Why not? I've never had anything easy up to this point anyways. I got grit. Mama gave me that. Here we go. So collected a bunch of bumblebee queens, figured out when they were out, identified all the different species, figured out what species were the most common, and then we started rearing bumblebees in the lab. And at that point, I had an amazing mentor who's now passed, phenomenal. His name was Bill Stephen. He had at one point in the lab where we reared these, had every species of bumblebee in the world reared in that lab. And so he had a lot of history, a lot of work in that area, a little peripheral, because his main kind of claim to fame was alfalfa seed production and pollination of the alfalfa leafcutter bee. But he did have a lot of work and interest in bumblebees. And so he was a big help to us, even though he was much more kind of peripheral. He was just so lovely, very charismatic, very bubbly, and a huge mentor. So, and he would come out of the rearing room and I'd say, Bill, I don't know why they're not laying eggs. And he was just like, just keep trying some stuff. It'll work. And I thought, he's got to have the answers. Why is he not giving them to me? If he's reared all these bumblebees, well, I figured out why. Because he was letting me work through this process. And it really did help me understand not only how to solve problems, but it also helped me really get an appreciation for the behavior of these insects. So this is a great example of one of the colonies. Would watch them for hours and hours and hours, figured out all these different behaviors they were doing. And then again, right, I got a little lost and I was like, wait, I've got to get a PhD. I've got to get out of here at some point. This is great, but I need to be in the real world. So how do I make a degree out of this? So we were able to hone this down. So we had the foraging behavior project with the pollen loads and the amount of foraging they were doing in their behavior in the landscape. I did a project on pesticides, looking at the effect of pesticide queens specifically in highbush blueberry to see how they were impacted. And then my last project was really interesting because we took the colonies that we reared and fed them different quantities of diet to see if they had a lapse of resources, like for instance a drought, or if there was a hurricane or something and they lost resource availability in the landscape, how would that affect the colony? And in this process, I figured out I really, really like bumblebees. Like, really, like all of y'all like honeybees, I really like bumblebees. So we decided to make a bumblebee rearing video, which now doesn't seem like a big deal because there's so many of these available. Well, at that time, this was pretty novel. And this is where the social media comment comes in. Not a good idea because it to date has had over 123,000 people view this. Please don't write this down. Do not go watch this. It is silly, but it is really interesting to see what social media can do and the amount of people that have been interested in this. It's been on for, what, about a decade now at this point, a little over. And what it does is it shows you kind of the journey of learning how to rear these insects. And as a PhD student, very much at sort of that naturalist focus of liking the observational part of it. So my first interaction with honeybees was this day, and you probably have seen this earlier. This was supposed to be a bee beard. That's what I was told. Well, that does not look like a bee beard to me, but I had no clue what I was doing. We had an amazing honeybee lab on campus, and again, it was not my interest at the time, but we had a day where students were able to go and get a bee beard, so I thought, how hard could this be? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go do this. I mean, when you're standing there, the weight of this is quite interesting. It's really quite phenomenal. If you ever get a chance to do this, I totally urge you to do it. From the outside looking in, people thought we were all going to die, but no one, of course, perished that day. But it did really change me, and it made me kind of have some interest in these organisms. So, first time in a bee suit, first time with bees really around me. And then I thought, okay, what do I do with this next? Because I'm really interested in bumblebees. Not a lot of sure where to go with that. And I wasn't really set up for academia. And I'll tell you why. Because unlike a lot of folks, when you get a PhD, it's an assumption that you will go and be an academic, at least in this time. There didn't seem like a lot of other options for people who may not be as interested in that path. And I watched as other faculty in our department really struggle from the politics to the funding, and some of this has been shared by other folks at this conference or at this meeting. It has been really challenging. When you see these people, you need to give real respect to them because the things they're not sharing with you, and the ways they've had to do things and make decisions to be where they are, you'll never know about it. And it's really hard. And I was fortunate to see people in our program share that with us as faculty. And I thought, I don't think so. It's already hard enough for me. I don't want to deal with all this. So academic was not something I was super as interested in, and I was a little concerned that was not a good career path. So what do you do with this? Well, lo and behold, there are two companies in the world at this point that rear bumblebees and sell them for pollination. And one of them is Covert Biological Systems. So I actually got a job there, and this became my adult phase at this point. So it was quite phenomenal. From there, I was able to dip back into academia for just a minute and thought, what about being a postdoc? Maybe I misjudged this. Let me try it again. Well, it was interesting because I ended up trying to do a postdoc, and it was very successful. But then this job came up as an apiary inspector, and I was like, I think I'm pretty good at judging things. I seem to be a pretty good problem solver. Why don't I try this out? And here we are. So I'll share a little bit of this journey. So at Covert, this was the second time I've ever worn a bee suit. They actually wanted my roles at the company in addition to doing a ton of research on their production of bumblebees. So imagine a factory just like this, but producing bumblebee colonies. Very involved, very amazing, very high tech, and a huge production facility dedicated to that. In all the areas of that production, there are inputs that are involved, just like here, right? Wax and workers, all the different wicks. And so in those, I was able to do research and development to see if they could remove some of the cost and increase production, and of course, ensure the safety and the health of the bumblebees. And also at the company, I was able to really see the world. I've been to Slovakia, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Canada. They flew me all over because quickly I became the bee's knees when it became to bumblebees. I was the person that was sent when there was a problem with the colonies, or they didn't seem to be going to the flowers in the field. So I quickly learned a little bit of Southern Spanish, or a little bit of that to say, where's the bathroom, and how am I not going to die, and is this taxi going to take me to the airport? And then a little bit of, up in Canada, a little bit of French, which is not very good. So that area is unique. But the best thing about this job, one of my favorite parts, was visiting all the honeybee keepers. We at Covert, they need pollen that's collected by honeybees to feed their bumblebee colonies. And in order to do that, they have contracts with beekeepers. So yes, they actually work with beekeepers to produce the pollen to feed the bumblebees in production. And so I got to visit every beekeeper that was our supplier. So I got to go really all over the U.S. now. And it was really fun. So some of you may know this beekeeper, but it's really a fun time to me to visit them and to learn a little bit more about this, even though my bee suit was just as pearly white from the day I started Covert to the day I left Covert. And knowing what I know now, I wish I would have smeared some mud or something on it because it would have gave me better street cred before getting out of the rental car. But I didn't know that. At least I got rid of the hat, though, Tammy. You gotta give me that. All right, so one place that I really had an appreciation is when I got to go to Slovakia to visit our bumblebee rearing facility for this company. I got to meet the beekeepers they work with, and as a way to kind of understand the standards and how they use to get the pollen. And these are some of my favorite beekeepers that I've ever met. And again, I love our beekeepers in the U.S. I love my job, but these folks, the folks that have shared their overseas visits, you can agree with me, it is nothing like the humility in these countries and how they are so much more open and welcoming in a lot of ways than what we do here in the States. It's pretty phenomenal. So if you ever get a chance to do this, I highly encourage you all to go on a tour of beekeeping in some other country. That's my biggest, I encourage you to check that out. I was also able to go to Massachusetts. So at this point, I'm, again, going that journey. And so I ended up in Massachusetts, had some friends there, visited, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And they were doing work on bumblebees. And where the bumblebees were piqued my interest. So there was a professor there, Ann Averill, in her lab in cranberries, and they were looking at pesticides that were used in cranberries and how they were impacting the bumblebees that were visiting the flowers, because the bumblebees and cranberries are such an intimate relationship for pollination. So they were really interested, and they were using covert colonies. So it was an interesting transition, easy for me. And one project that we did is a lot of the bogs there in cranberries in the western part of Massachusetts are being returned back as conservation areas. So you've got this really neat succession in landscape there, and they were curious to see if that return was helping bumblebees have a much more productive and healthy life cycle. So spent a lot of time now tearing apart the colonies that I was at Coper helping to produce. So it was an interesting kind of back to that journey. And guess what? I was still rearing bumblebee colonies. So everywhere I went, people were like, "Oh, you know how to do this? Well, let's see if we can do it here. I can do it here. Oh, you know how to do this? I can do it here. I can do it with that species." So I'm still doing this, not professionally anymore, but now I do this personally. So I'm up to 17 different species. I always have bumblebees in my basement at home in the spring. It is quite a fun opportunity. And now I struggle because I start seeds for my pollinator garden, which is my other passion of having bees and flowers in my yard. So now I have to hurry up and rear, get the plants big enough so I can kick them out and bring my bumblebee queens in. So every year I do a little hot dance to try to make that work. But it's been really fun. So some of the bumblebee colonies, by the way, all of this is really homegrown. Most of the stuff I use comes from dollar stores, and I use the same methods that I did as a grad student. So not a lot has changed over the years. I just been doing it a lot more refining. So it's been really fun to use those skills, even I've gained as a scientist, to keep using them in my free time. And most of you are like, "This person's rearing bumblebees in their basement? That is real weird. Y'all all keeping bees that sting you. Also weird. We're all weird here together." So guess what? When you started beekeeping, you joined a club of weird people, and it's great. Don't go back to the other side. So I knew y'all would appreciate it. One thing that I was really excited about, so in addition to gardens for bees, which has been a fun journey, and I know Barb and I were talking about this, it's so fun to watch this, was able to, when I just got into my new house, my partner is an artist, and so she said, "I really want to give you a gift." And I don't know if you noticed, but this is a bee that I work on in my dissertation work. This is Bombus Fossinsky. And she said, "I'm going to give you a gift, and I'm going to put a mural on your garage door." I am not an artist. I had no idea what I was getting into, but it is quite phenomenal. My house is near railroad tracks, and when the train comes by several times a day, the cars line up, and we've had so many people get out, take pictures, and it's just been phenomenal. So I throw this at you because she's here, but also garage door is a missed opportunity. I don't know why they don't have a mural on them. They all need murals. So if you're a bee lover, you got to get down to your core, y'all. You're missing an opportunity here if you don't have a mural on your garage door of bees. So let's make that a trend. Hashtag garage door mural or whatever the thing is. So, yep, so Sarah's back there. Sarah, you might have more interest in this than you ever wanted. So how in the world did I get this? How did I jump this far? That's such an interesting point, right? Well, when I was at Massachusetts, I had a friend that was in grad school who worked for the Department of Agriculture. And she said, "Kim, we've got a job that just got posted, and you could be our state apiarist." I had no clue what that was. I was like, "I don't know what that is." And she was like, "Well, you're going to work with bees." And I was like, "Am I going to work with bumblebees?" She goes, "No, but you should apply." I told them you would apply. And I was like, "I don't know if this is for me." Well, I ended up was interested in it. Not a lot of money in postdoc work, a lot of good heart and interest, but you're not going to make a living doing that. And you've heard that story today. But government is supposed to have good benefits, right? A good job, and most of us think government workers don't do anything anyway. So I was like, "Man, I could really be a rock star. I just show up for work. Rock star, promoted." No, I'm teasing. But I ended up going, and because I've done so much work in creating labs and basically being a problem solver, my favorite thing to do at work is to come into a system, or any job I've had, come into a system, have a system that's sort of outdated or has not been functioning well or has not been doing anything, and revamp and redo the system. That's my favorite thing to do. I love that part of it. The APIAR program needed that. The person that was my predecessor had retired and then passed away. So I had no mentorship, I had no idea what to do. Guess what? Y'all know how to be an apiary inspector? Anybody? A couple of them obviously in the room. That was me on day one. I could have been any one of y'all, except at least you have honeybees. I didn't have any honeybees. I thought, I can make a lab. I can design and bring in molecular analysis. I can put a team of people together. I can work with the public. I can do all those things. And I'll tell you why that was important. So the reason that's been interesting for me at this job is I have gotten to do something that I would have never thought my younger self would ever get to do. And forget traveling the world right now. What I get to do is hang out with y'all. You think my love of bees is infectious? Imagine doing bumblebee rearing by yourself, who the only thing that loves bees more than you do are the bees you're looking at, right? But I get to look at all of y'all. Y'all love bees just as much as I do. And that is next level. And that's what's really exciting to me about this job, because apiary inspection, as you've heard from some of our colleagues, is something that starts in our vehicle. When we pull up in your yard as an apiary inspector, we've already started the inspection. You just don't know it. So we do your apiary, we do your yard, we're doing the whole thing because we can size you up pretty quickly. And then, of course, we get to the colonies. But apiary inspection program that we've been able to have in Massachusetts, we're really proud of it. It has not been built in a vacuum. I'm not the only person that built this program like a king on a throne. We have let a program be built and driven by beekeepers, which is really unique and quite frankly, not as common because, and I'll share with you in a bit why, but we've had some funding to do it with, and that's really what it takes, putting the right people in the right job. So if y'all will humor me, I'm going to boast a little, not about myself, but about my people and about these two folks in the room as well in just a minute. So let me show you a little bit about our program. Since the program, I was hired in 2015. We've had 10 inspectors. All of them have been part-time seasonal, and except the current inspector that we have, Paul Tessier, is our first full-time additional apiary inspector than the program has ever had. So it was a huge deal to get Paul hired. And if you're curious about how to do that, come up after. We've also had 13 student interns, and some of those have actually been vet students. So these were vet students. They felt really fun and thought they would emulate what festooning was in bees. So for the veterinarians in the room, y'all heard from Tracy earlier, they got a fun sense of humor. Probably some of the best interns I've ever had, by the way. And this was my team, minus one inspector, and Ken Warchall here is on the end. He's quite a legend in our area. He was with us for 45 years and just retired. So that's another reason why our programs are so important, because you have these folks that have been doing it for so long and help people like me who go, what am I supposed to do with this job? Learn how to do this. And we've done all kind of stuff over the years. Some of these photos, I try to find some photos of myself, but number one, I'm always taking the photos. And number two, most of my day-to-day is moving more and more behind a computer screen than it has been in the field, which is unfortunate. So I don't have as many photos of me doing cool stuff, but I really worked hard. That was probably the hardest part of this presentation, was us talking about yourself, which is never easy to do, as y'all heard today, but also finding photos. So social media matters. Take them pictures and hold on to them. Since we've been doing this since 2015 to 2021, this is how many colonies and bee samples and bee inspectors. It's quite impressive, and I want you to remember those numbers. And hopefully you're kind of wowed at this point, because this is just our program. Tammy's here from Kentucky, Barb's here from Ohio. You start adding numbers like this together for all the states and territories and provinces in Canada, and remember those pieces, because I'm going to tell you why it's important in just a second. One thing that we also do is programs like this. So just in my program alone, we've done almost 300 programs in the last 6 years, which is unheard of. I don't know anybody who's not an extension that works for the government that has funding or personnel to do that many programs. But one thing that's helped us is that it's virtual, and the ability to do that. We can reach a lot of beekeepers that way. And these are just the attendees that we know of. So these are people that have come in person or registered for programs with us. So it's quite an amazing service that we're able to offer. And for me, a huge source of pride is this photo, not because I'm in it, but because I've got one of my inspectors, Shay Willette, here that I'm literally just introducing. I'm the arm candy to this program. Shay gave this because that's what this job is about. It's about people. So I'm going to share that in just a second with you. The other thing that we've done that's really revolutionized our program is we've designed it how beekeepers' needs with feedback for them. So what do you need to be a successful beekeeper? What can the state do for you? Like really, not lip service, not, oh, this is pie in the sky today. What do y'all need? You need some varroa mite jars, don't you? You need that. So we've handed out almost 6,000 of them in Massachusetts for free. We've mailed them, we've handed them out. We even give some to other states. So we got a small grant to do that with. That's been a huge impact. You need to be able to sample your bees when you have a disease. We've done 2,500 of those samples and processed them for free for beekeepers. Huge impact. And handed the sample kits out. And we even decided to get really involved here and collect our own honey, which we've donated to the local food banks. And some of the areas in Massachusetts, actually, some of those children have never had honey in their entire lives. This might be the only honey they ever eat until they become an adult. Because honey, as we know, is very hard to make and quite expensive to buy if you're in an economically disadvantaged area. So we have some of those in Massachusetts. So it's been a really nice kickback for the community. We've also done a ton of training, both internally for bee kills and even to inspectors that have been brought on in the region. Like we had a new inspector come in Rhode Island. Here's actually the predecessor at Rhode Island inspector that came and worked with us. And then veterinary students that we mentioned earlier, which has been really fun because those folks, again, I have to put a plug out for you, Tracy. I've never had better interns than veterinary students. It's pretty phenomenal how you train these folks to see the people. Very inspiring. The other thing that we've done is we've done our own health survey. Now, the Bee Informed Partnership does a great job with the health survey, but what's neat about our local survey is we can ask questions about our apiary program. So we encourage our beekeepers to take the BIP survey, and we encourage them to take ours. And then we even sweeten the pot. So we go fishing and we offer as bait, we'll send you this sign in the mail you can put out. And beekeepers don't like any free stuff, right? You don't ever get anything free when you go to meetings. None of you have ever put money in for a raffle either, right? Never. Those are two things I learned real quick when you go to the bee club. Everybody's got this long string of ribbons with the tickets hanging around their neck because they're raffling something off every time. And people love free stuff. You can hand out napkins and they'll all be gone by the end of the meeting. So y'all know y'all are. So I'm not kidding. You act like you're not. Anyways, look in your bags and pockets. If there was pins over there, they'd all be gone. I should have brought some jars if we weren't in an airplane, but we were able to kind of bait them. But it's been really lovely to have this. So we also gave out bumper stickers last year, so we've been able to kind of help them. And it's really cool. These have kind of become like fun. Sarah and I play a game, and we see these when we're out and about. I'm like, oh my god, that's one of our beekeepers, because the only people that have had access to them are the beekeepers. So and these signs. So it's actually been really helpful for our pesticide applicators to see these because we've trained them when we do those trainings that if they see those signs, there's a beekeeper nearby. So it's been really helpful. We don't have mandatory registration in Massachusetts, so that's really hard for us to help bridge that gap between applicators and beekeepers and provide that information. So the last thing we've done here is a lot of research work, as much as you can do in our capacity. And one thing that I've enjoyed the most is work with Apiary Inspectors of America. So it's not a lot of grant money, very, very little. And the reason I say that is because our programs have been fairly well funded. We have a $125,000 budget. We used to have $90,000. So we've done all that, $90,000. So apparently, I am also a magician somewhere in all of these jobs that I do. I didn't know I was trained for that as a PhD, but I think we are. So my favorite thing that I do every year, if you ever get a chance, please do come to it. We are very fortunate in Massachusetts to have a ton of amazing history. We love it. Well, I'm going to say Sarah loves it. I'm originally from Georgia, right? So we're not the first of much down there, but in Massachusetts, they're our first of a lot, and they love that history there. And so we do have Lorenzo Langstroth's church that he was a preacher at, and they do event. That whole community has honored him with the Lorenzo Langstroth Bee Fest every year. This is one of my favorite things to do, and this year we decided to collect a bunch of drones that pooped on us for a bit because we got them when they emerged, and then they were fine, and then the kids loved it. So we had a good time walking around handing this out, in addition to trying to get our ag commissioner as much into bees as possible. And this is important, and other legislators who are in politics, because it really changes them when they're able to get into a honeybee hive. And even if they're kissing babies and all that mess, it makes a really big difference because they can now leave with an impression of what we do, more importantly, what you do and what your needs are to keep these bees alive. So that's what we're trying to do here with this, in addition to some programs, handing out plants. All of this, I say, is that I have a love of bees. But my job is about people. It's about bees, but it's about the people that manage those bees. Everything I've done in my career is about people. So if you don't know how to talk to people, if you can't relate to people, you need to take some classes and get on top of it because you are not going to be successful. And I mean that with the utmost love. It is so much about people in our world because just like you are attracted to the honeybee hive, and as Jerry mentioned, the altruism in that, we as humans are attracted to each other in those social exchanges. So my job's about people. And one of the groups I've been very fortunate enough to be a part of that has changed my entire career at this point. And I think I found my club, right? Because some of you are like, oh, I found my people. These are my people. These are my people. And I'll show you. So the Apiary Inspectors of America, check us out, apiaryinspectors.org. We are just as nerdy as it sounds. We are people that inspect bees and work with beekeepers. So just like y'all, except we do it with a regulatory lens. Our goal here is to facilitate support of you all. So what do you need? And I've showed you a little bit about my program, and I appreciate the time to share that. I want to guarantee you that Tammy and Bar's program is equally a rock star, along with all of our other members at AIA, and they have been my people. We were at April Monday, and if you can take pictures like this, so this is North Dakota, this is Montana, this was Florida. How many of you would put two faces in one bee? Well, AIA inspectors will, so that's when you find your people. Yep. And these folks are phenomenal. I've learned so much of them, both personally, professionally. They have mentored me. They have lifted and held me up as a person, not only at my job. And honestly, these folks are my speed dials for those really hard day homes, those car rides where I want to scream and yell and like, what in the world just happened? And I'm stung up with bees. These are my go-tos. These are my ride or die people. And so the reason they have been that way is because all these folks are doing the same thing we're doing in Massachusetts. Their programs are multifaceted. They're designed with the beekeeper in mind, and they're really focused on how do we get the support for that. So I did my car salesman about apiary inspections. Now I'm going to push it back on y'all. Our job is about ensuring that bees are healthy by helping you hopefully make you happy when your bees are healthy. That's our whole role here. And in order to do that, when I asked the apiary inspectors what their vision was for apiary inspection programs, the future of this, I got a lot of interesting responses. And in order to keep them anonymous and quite frankly sift through it all, because you think I'm a long talker, right? Apiary inspectors, we love to talk about bees. So I had to cut this stuff down. Tammy does our newsletter, so she knows. I'm going to put a quick word art for you, but I really wanted you to see this. Our goal is for beekeepers. And their vision that they shared with me, that was a word that came up over and over and over again. So when I share with you really quickly why you should do this, and there's a lot here, but the take-home message is that apiary inspectors are the bee's needs, not because we're here to get you in trouble, but because we visit more beekeepers, we see more disease, more weird stuff. We are the most kind of in contact with the beekeepers in our area, and because of this, we really need y'all to sort of understand what our positions are. And in the room, I know we've got a lot of states here. What state? Raise your hand if you don't know who your apiary inspector is. A couple of them. So the fact that y'all don't know, we're not doing our job. That's why I'm here, because I'm representing this organization on top of that. So I encourage you, and my vision for apiary inspectors are really simple, basic stuff. The programs are funded, you got staff, it's sustainable, and the end of all this is that we can provide as many support services that we can do, but we need y'all's support. And what we need you to do is we need you to be kids in school again. Follow the rules, read your laws, don't be doing stupid stuff, you know who you are. And if you don't know what they are, I have people come up to me and say, we have laws about bees. I'm like, come here, we're going to have a conversation. We need to get you involved. Yeah, so yes, there are laws about everything, y'all. So bees are in there. And the reality is we want them to be sustainable. And I know this is kind of a vision, it's a pretty lofty goal. And I'm going to leave you one slide up. But seriously, the ways you can do this, when we polled our members, we found out there was a couple areas they also agreed with me that we needed support. And those are funding a budget and staff and personnel. We're very fortunate in Massachusetts. Our program is not fabulously funded, but it is funded, and we do have staff. But that is not the same for every program. And actually, beekeepers. And the reason for that particular item is because we have folks that aren't either following the law or doing regulatory compliance, or quite frankly, are not sure how to get access to our resources. So we don't know how to support you if you don't know who we are, or vice versa. So how do we bridge that gap? And the things that you can do is, if you really want an apiary inspection program in your state or province or territory, if you've never heard of your apiary inspector, or if you're not sure you even have one, or if you look it up and you don't have one in your state, contact your legislators. That's how we've been able to have a budget increase in Massachusetts. It's worked out really well. Guess what? If you flood politicians' email inbox or phone call, you're going to get a response. So it works really well. You have a lot of power as a citizen and as a stakeholder, as a taxpayer, so use it. They're supposed to be working for you. Tell them what you need. And then, of course, the other stuff about being a good steward for bees and making sure that if you're going to do stuff and programs include apiary inspectors. You heard from several of us today. You think I'm a good salesman and tap dancer? These folks, y'all heard from two of rock stars in this group. There's 40 or 50 more of us in the apiary inspectors. We would love to talk about any topic that you want. And most of us are free because we're all government workers and we can't take any money for a program. So all of you bee clubs are so well funded, right? You don't need any money or free speakers. So we have a really nice access to those resources. So I'll leave you with a plug. I can't do my due diligence. I promised my beekeepers I would do this. So come join us at EAS. We're going to have a lot of folks doing apiary inspection programs, and a lot of apiary inspectors are heavily involved in the Eastern Apicultural Society meeting. It's going to be in Massachusetts this year. It will not be very far from our state apiary, and I promise you, if you come to this meeting, you're going to get, if you don't have it by now, I hope you do, but you're going to get a lot more appreciation for what we do, and you're really going to get to see us do this in action. So this is a bunch of lip service. I'm going to come and I'll show you. So we'll show you because we're there, and that's what I like. I really appreciate y'all's time. Thank you so much for this, and I really hope you can support your apiary inspectors. Yeah, thank you for that. So,
I really apologize. Kim wasn't feeling well today, so his energy level was down. So another great message that you need to take with you for your state and everything you heard from him is we're all in this together, aren't we? And we can't be successful unless we are together. And if you look at other parts of agriculture, they have maybe a little bit better organization than we do. But it's up to you to make that happen. That's why you're here today.